Everyone. Today we are talking about drawing in charcoal, and I'm going to guide you through using the types of charcoal that I asked you to buy in the supply list. And this is just my favorite method of working with charcoal. It's definitely not the only way to work with charcoal, but I like working this way with different types of charcoal because I feel like it gives me a really full range of value and the ability to do fine detail. So I asked you to buy 3 different kinds of charcoal. Vine charcoal, compressed charcoal, and charcoal pencil. I believe I only asked you to buy the medium pencil, which you can tell is my favorite pencil because of the size. But you might have also, if you bought a pack, it would have come with some other hardnesses as well. So when I think about charcoal, I think about it from the least processed type of charcoal moving forward to the most processed type of charcoal. And when we begin our drawings, we're going to start with the least processed type of charcoal, which is vine charcoal. It often comes in little bags like this with all these different sizes, and that's because this is literally organic matter that got tossed into like a giant oven. Like you can imagine, this might have been a vine, and they just burned the heck out of it. So it's going to give you a pretty light kind of a gray, and it's going to erase very easily. Not necessarily erase easily, but smudge easily, and it's going to erase more easily than your other types of charcoal. So that's vine, so that's what we're going to start with. Then next up, we're going to move to compressed charcoal. And compressed charcoal, it's like they took vine and they just smashed it. And what compressed charcoal does is it gives you a really nice deep black. I asked you to buy the charKole brand, which is charcoal with a K. I like this one because I feel like it gives you a really nice warm black. Some of the other brands, they compress the charcoal in such a way that I don't know, it's not as soft, or it doesn't blend as well with other types of charcoal. So charcoal with a K, and again, I'm going to write all this in the description. That's my preferred brand. And then finally, I'll have you end your drawings with the charcoal pencil. And the only charcoal pencil you really need is the medium charcoal pencil, in my opinion. But the others can be useful as well if you have them. So here we go. I've made some marks with all of them, and you can see of all of these, the charcoal pencil is the one that smudges the least. So I like using it at the very end because it's such a great way to get really fine and dramatic details into your work. So those are the 3 types of charcoal you'll be using. I also asked you to get some pencil or some erasers, and of the erasers you might have gotten, these are the most common types. This one here starts out looking a lot more like this, or this. You have the Kneaded eraser, which begins in a little gray square. You take it out of its packaging, and then you can knead it with a K, knead. And you can see that it has sort of a bubblegum consistency, so it's going to be your softest eraser. This is going to be your second softest eraser. It's often called a gum eraser, as in like rubber gum, just because of the type of rubber that's used to make it. The benefit of the brown eraser is that it's a little bit softer, and it's going to do less damage to your paper. Then finally you have a white eraser, and the white eraser is going to erase the most, but if you are really going for it, you can also kind of damage your paper. Personally, I don't use a gum eraser all that much. I tend to use just the white and the Kneaded eraser mostly. The Kneaded eraser I like because you can change its shape, and it tends to be like softer and gentler. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of try to erase out some parts of that. There we go. You can see erased a little bit of the vine. It erased a lot of the smudged charcoal, and even quite a bit of the charcoal itself. And then it erases a lot of the charcoal pencil. If you use the white eraser by contrast, and I'm going for it with the white eraser, you can see that it removes a lot more material, but even so, there's a little bit of a ghost that's always left. There's less of a ghost with the vine charcoal. That's why I recommend you start with the vine charcoal, because if you're like, oops, you can always go back and erase out almost all of it with this. But with these other types of charcoal, you might never get a full erasure. I like having on hand a paintbrush or something like that when working with charcoal. I find it super helpful because if I was to go like this to wipe my eraser bits off, I would also smudge all of the actual charcoal. So I use a paintbrush and I just very politely kind of sweep off my eraser marks. And this is one thing that is true of charcoal. Charcoal is a mess. So if you've got a white carpet or if you're wearing really nice clothes, you're probably going to want to change and put some sort of drop cloth below you, because charcoal tends to get everywhere, and it's already starting to get on my hands. So those are the erasers. So we've got the charcoal. Some other useful tools. You're gonna want to smudge your charcoal for sure, but I really recommend that you don't smudge the charcoal with your hands. Your hands, even if they're very clean and dry, they still have residue of just like, you know, human skin on them. So if you, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna rub my fingers in here. If you rub your fingers into the page and then you go over it with charcoal, so what you're doing basically is you're rubbing the oil from your hands into the paper, and it makes it a lot harder to erase, because you're not just adding charcoal onto the paper, you're also adding oil from your hands and residue of skin and whatever. So you're just not going to get a full erasure. You can see this is darker than what I had up here because I was rubbing it in with my fingers. So don't use your hands to rub in, is my advice. My advice is to use basically anything else. Some great substitutes are little bits of towel. This is a blue shop towel, but paper towels, Kleenex work great. You can buy a specific thing just for smudging, which is called a chamois cloth, but that's chamois spelled C-H-A-M-O-I. It's actually a little piece of leather, and it's very soft, and if you've used it for many years as I have, it actually gets to a point where it's accumulated a bunch of dust and you can use it as its own drawing tool, but you can do that with a Kleenex too. So some sort of a Kleenex or a little piece of leather or something like that is essential. If you don't have any of that, a cotton ball also works great, or a piece of an old t-shirt, or if you have like little pieces of cotton for applying makeup, these work awesome for use with drawing with charcoal. It works almost as well as the leather. And then almost indispensable, almost my favorite for drawing with charcoal, is Q-tips. Q-tips are so great because they kind of accumulate the charcoal and they become their own drawing tool. And you might also be familiar with these here. These are called, it's a French name, so get ready for me to butcher it, Tortillons. I like to call them smudge sticks because you smudge things with them. And they come as rolled up paper or they come as solid rolls of paper in all different sizes, and they're very similar to the Q-tip. Here, if I put some of the compressed charcoal down, I can then kind of smudge it out and draw with that smoky smudge. So it's essential to have as many tools as you can find that are, I love tools that are paper or cotton or leather based for moving your charcoal around once you've got it onto your page. And the more variation you have in like the size and shape, the more variation you're going to have in your drawing when it comes to being able to move around your value. Some other supplies that I find personally super helpful. This is a kind of specialized thing. This is an eraser it's like a mechanical pencil, but it's an eraser, and you can actually buy refills for it. I love these erasers because they're the white eraser. However, this small format of them, I feel like allows me to really bear down when I'm erasing and get a better erasure. And you can also, I think, if you use just the side of it, you can get really fine erased marks. So it just allows for more precision with erasure. I will also, you know me, you know I love to have a ruler around, because if you have a ruler around, you can actually use it with any of your erasers to hold up the edge and then erase right up to the edge of your ruler and get like a nice straight line. This helps especially if you're working on perspectival drawings. And I also like to have some sandpaper handy, because with the sandpaper I can actually sand down my charcoal so that I either create a fine dust that I can then smudge around, or I can actually use it to shape my charcoal into a fine point if I want to get fine detail. And finally, I want to talk to you about sharpening your charcoal pencils. You can use a regular sharpener to sharpen your charcoal pencils. However, the charcoal within is super crumbly. And so if you start doing one of these, you know, just a regular pencil sharpener, chances are your lead is going to break. So I'm not even going to bother with showing you how the lead is going to break. You might have already experienced that yourself. My alternative, my tip is I really like using a knife or an X-Acto blade to sharpen my charcoal pencils. And to do this, you've got to be very careful. I hold the blade away from me and I apply pressure with my thumb down, and then as I near the lead, I angle my blade away. And doing this, you can guarantee that with a little bit of practice, you're never going to just keep on breaking your lead as you sharpen it, and that way you won't waste your pencil. And once you have the pencil exposed, then you can, on a piece of charcoal, if you want to sharpen it further, you can by twisting it around and just sort of kneading it down, and then you can get really, really fine marks. So that's just an introduction to the basic tools, so you kind of know where they're at. Next up, I'm going to record a short video to show you how you can use all of them together.